This podcast thanks to OFX, the experts in global money transfer. Transfer funds 24/7 with no hidden fees. The smart money's on the smart move. Go to OFX.com.
Tell you something that might have put a little joy in the heart of some Telstra shareholders today. They have certainly been knocked around the place, particularly as a result of a change in the dividend policy at Telstra. Then, of course, there is the significant change in Telstra 2022, the T62 strategy that will see a quarter of the workforce go. There are challenges from Telstra right now as a result of the rollout of the national broadband network, and as a result, customers are being lost from Telstra to the NBN providers. On top of that, then, white-hot competition in the mobile space. So to see the Telstra share price today jump by 17 cents off the back of its annual results to $3.06, so it's up by 5.8%, suggests that the market likes something about the message in today's results. Let's now go to Andy Penn, Chief Executive of Telstra, who's on the line. Many thanks for your time, Andy. I would have thought after being knocked about after the last little while, a jump in the share price would have been some respite for you, the management, and probably the shareholders as well.
Look, thanks very much, Ross. Great to speak as always. Look, I think I try not to follow the share price on a day-to-day basis because I think, ultimately it's about having the right strategy. But I'm also acutely conscious of it. And in particular, as you said, our shareholders have, they've had to wear a lot of pain and I'm acutely conscious of the impact of the share price and the dividend on them, so it is great to see a positive reaction today.
It's always the outlook statements that come through, and as a result, some of these outlook statements suggest really the guidance has not changed from that provided in early June. On top of that, also, you're suggesting that there may be a bit more growth. The rollout of 5G is something that all of your investors, all of Australia is waiting for, and maybe that's your chance to fight back a little bit, grab market share in mobile, and maybe even grab a little bit back out of the NBN as well.
Yeah, look, I think some of the positive things for me in our results today, which have been played back to us a little bit, is that we had actually very strong customer growth. Everybody knows that the competitive pressure is putting an impact on revenues, is putting an impact on margins. The migration to the NBN obviously structurally changes the dynamic, so everyone understands why that's playing through on the financial results. But we saw 340,000 net new mobile subscribers, including 308,000 in the important postpaid handheld category. We estimate that in Q4, our share in that adds in that category was about 70% of the market. We saw 88,000 net new fixed ads. We connected 770,000 people to the NBN, and we grew our market share on NBN to 51%. So a lot of good lead indicators, which I think is partly why we've seen a positive response.
I did mention in the introduction the white-hot competition in mobile. It's all about data right now. Just explain, to gain 342,000 new retail mobile customers, what really are the points that you believe are attracting those customers to Telstra? Because let's be honest, everybody's offering plenty of data out there. It's pretty hot in terms of price. So what is it that's bringing them towards Telstra?
Yeah, sure. Well, look, I think, some of our traditional strengths have absolutely worked for us. So, our network leadership and network advantage, we've not been immune to the odd issue in the network, but nonetheless, we still have the best network in the country. We've got, we're winning speed awards and we've got the best coverage. And so I think there's a lot of customers who still very much recognise that Telstra is the best telecommunications network. And then similarly, we've enhanced the value of the proposition by, as you say, we've just recently launched Peace of Mind data, which essentially enables customers to enjoy effectively a service where they don't have any excess data charges anymore. They don't have to worry about that. We've enhanced our media offering. So we've now got 2.3 million people who are actually users of our AFL, NRL sporting apps. And
so in other words, that's the bait, isn't it, really, in many ways? For a lot of people, it's going to be getting the footy on their mobile devices these days with plenty of data to be able to consume it. That is almost, if you like, the bait that will get those consumers to not only come to Telstra, but to hang on to Telstra mobile services as well.
Yeah, well, look, absolutely. Look, the weekend before last was the biggest ever weekend for us for streaming on mobile. We had 1.2 million customers stream, and at one point we had 500,000 concurrent streams of sport, live sport, over our mobile network. Now, that's pretty incredible. And one of the technologies actually that we put in place recently is something called LTE broadcast, which enables us to effectively do what the satellite operators do, but over a mobile network. So satellite, when you're broadcasting satellite, you broadcast once rather than do it in individual streams. And that makes a massive difference to the capacity implications on the network. And so we were able to support massive growth in streaming through the integration of that technology into our sports apps.
And that will only get better and bigger once 5G is rolled out. I did notice today that you're rolling out about $3 billion worth of strategic investment in what you call the networks for the future, including $1.8 billion invested to date, another $1.5 billion as you prepare for the launch of 5G. Just explain to me, when you invest that money, you've got to have a figure in mind as to what you might get back in return on that capital. What sort of figures do you start to bandy around in your own mind when you're talking about those investments?
Well, let me answer it this way. I mean, firstly, if we look at the return on invested capital from our mobiles business, it's around about 20% today. So it's a pretty good return that we get when we make the right investments in mobile. One of the things that we know that's coming at us is we need to basically be able to deliver 5 times the volume of data in the next 2 to 3 years for basically the same cost that we do today. So that means we've got to reduce the cost per gigabit of data by 80% across our network. The only way that we will do that is if we leverage new technologies such as 5G, which have got better capacity for the same price. And so that's where the value is going to go. And then, of course, the other dynamic is the extent to which we can attract new customers in 5G. There's no doubt that when you move to a new G, early adopters of technology, they like to go to the new technology and they're willing to pay more to get there. And so we see some opportunity there. And, of course, over the long term, the other sort of opportunities in things like the Internet of Things and other use cases which are even yet to be defined.
Because you say in the future that Telstra, a little bit like, say, for example, you've invested in some businesses yourself, that the way in which you get a bigger bang for the shareholders' dollar, the way in which you get the growth out of Telstra is to actually create new businesses that are the Internet of Things. In other words, it may be some device that allows operations to take place remotely in regional areas. It might be education apps or something like that. It may be streaming of football, whatever it might be. But this is the way in which you get the growth that is now not inside Telstra because it's such a big telco in Australia.
Yeah, look, that's right, Ross. I mean, let's be clear. We're not losing sight of the fact that we're a telco because that's exactly who we are. This is about understanding what a telco of the future needs to be. And a telco of the future needs to not only derive value and growth from just the pure connectivity in the network, but increasingly we have to drive value and growth from the services and applications that sit on top of the network. So what you're talking about, I mean, great example is we've just launched a great initiative in logistics where basically, so that's trucks and other delivery vehicles for large operators of logistics around the country, where we add devices and then produce telematics, which basically enables them to capture data on their fleets in terms of maintenance, the performance of the vehicles, the driver statistics, even what they're hauling, and then have real lifetime data of that. And that enables them to do predictive maintenance, better management of the fleet, better security and confidence over, keeping frozen goods frozen if they're being transported and hauled. So there's a whole range of different business models which rely on connectivity but have an application and service which goes with that connectivity. And we're increasingly moving up that value chain.
The one thing I did note that John Mullen and you, the chairman, put out a statement today, and I thought this was really interesting. You said the company was operating in times of enormous challenge and change. You acknowledge the challenge, you acknowledge the difficulty, but you also acknowledge the need for change inside your business.
Yeah, look, and I think that's one of the things that's sort of central to our T22 strategy. It's about, we are a large traditional company. We've been around for, 150 years. And, there's this classic sort of phrase around, being prepared to disrupt yourself before you become disrupted. And we're taking a bolder stance in that direction. We need to be bolder. We need to get ahead. But I think we're doing that, obviously, in a very challenging market at the moment, but in an industry where growth and demand for data and connectivity and telecommunications is only going to increase. The only question for us is, can we put ourselves in a great position to capture the value that that's going to create? And that's what it's all about.
Andy Penn, Chief Executive of Telstra. Always good to have a chat.
All right, mate. Thanks very much, Ross. Great to be on the show.